Hi there, fight fans. My name is Kian Laing, and I'm very happy to say that today I'm not alone for a change. I'm joined by the incredible Knostman. Dylan, thank you very much for joining me today, brother. How are we doing?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic, man. It's Diego Lopes fight week. I mean, I got the shirt, I got the mustache, I got the mullet. I do want to put it out there too. He posted that picture the other day with the new mustache. I've been rocking this long before he did, so maybe some inspiration there. I'm not sure, but regardless, happy to be here and excited to break down these fights with you, my man.
It feels like he's there. I mean, he's seen the strength of your one. People will know that you've been on this train. That is as strong as it gets, man. And
Thank you,
and
man.
of course, this weekend he steps into the cage. UFC Noche himself, Silva in the main event. I mean, that really is the focus, the highlight of this card, maybe more so than a typical main event that we're used to. What are your thoughts, your feelings looking ahead to this one?
Man, it's I mean, again, this fight is about as good as they get. The rest of the card is probably the opposite in my opinion. Not the greatest offering, but regardless, I mean, 5 rounds, John Silva and Diego Lopes. I mean, Diego's coming off that title fight with Volk, which obviously he didn't win that fight, but at times he looked fantastic, and the rest of his UFC resume is great. And then John Silva is, I mean, after this last weekend, the last undefeated fighting nerd, if I'm not mistaken, in the UFC at least, and obviously a lot of pressure on him probably for that, and stepping into his first main event is going to be big as well. But yeah, definitely some interesting technical aspects to break down about this fight.
And I mean, you mentioned it there, John Silva. What do you think that will do to his confidence levels? Having looked at UFC Paris last week, Ruffy loses, Bahayo loses in the main event. Do you think that's something that could potentially play on his mind? We know he's a bit of an emotional character.
Yeah, I mean, like you just said, he's a very emotional guy, which I think can take him two ways. You know, it can light a fire under him and say, "I have to carry the Fighting Nerds flag and like make prove to the world that we are still, top game in terms of camps." But at the same time, I mean, and again, nothing wrong with guys crying. I'm full support of showing emotions, but I mean, this man will break down into tears over anything, and I mean, you saw him punch the wall after Rufi got submitted, and you're just like, man, what'll that do for him? So again, it's gonna be fascinating to see like how that motivates him and how that moves him, or how it might affect his fighting style. It's gonna be very interesting.
I mean, you mentioned that there. I saw a video that was put up either today or yesterday where he saw the poster for this one and he started crying as well.
Yeah.
Like, this guy is all the way out there.
Yeah.
He's a crazy guy. He's a wild guy. And of course, that reflects inside the cage as well. This man is just all gas, no brakes when he steps inside there.
Yeah. Well, I want to give a shout to fellow Brit, Jack Slack. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but he put out an article today actually talking about John Silva and just how the madness of his fighting style, yet he's also so good at that balanced pressure and staying in a guy's face, waiting to react, forcing that reaction, and then executing and putting in. I think personally something that's very fascinating about John Silva is the way he disarms his opponents through glove touches and high fives, and like there's a very real aspect where mentally, if you're fighting and a guy's like, nice shot, it breaks down that killer instinct, but he doesn't lose that. And he almost like, I remember the Melsik Baghdasaryan fight, it was like he's all dapping him up when he landed a kick, and then all of a sudden he comes back with just the most killer counter you've ever seen and puts his lights out. And it's like, yeah, this guy loves fighting so much that he can almost put a different mental angle onto it and have fun while executing the most amount of violence possible. I don't know, it's a fascinating thing to watch.
I think it's so unique, and it's such a great point that you've made there. I mean, it has to feel that way for guys. I wonder with this one if he'll be able to do that to Diego Lopes, because Diego Lopes is about the most locked in guy I've ever seen inside the cage, and there's a little bit of bad blood between these two as well. So I wonder if he does any of that. I feel like Lopes is the type of guy where he's got the blinders on, he's got the blinkers on, he knows his game, and maybe he can just ignore that. But it's wild to see him go in there laughing, hugging guys at times. When do you see a guy hug his opponent during the fight? It's so crazy.
It's really fascinating to watch. But on the flip side for Diego, I mean, this is kind of like two trains colliding, because both these guys are so forward pressure. They want to be in their opponent's face, and Diego, if anything, that hurt him a little bit in the Volk fight. And I think this is a consistent trend we've seen with the Lobo Gym fighters and people coming out of that camp, whether it's Lupe Godinez, Alexa Grasso, Alessandro Costa, Diego Lopes. They struggle to cut the cage. It's a really big deficiency. They're so, which is interesting because they pride themselves in their boxing, and they're like, we are the Mexican boxing pride, all that stuff. But at the same time, so much of boxing is not just throwing your hands, but directive footwork and cutting the cage and creating angles. Yet all those fighters seem to just go forward, and like Volk showed, if you have any sort of lateral movement or efficiency of cage control, it makes it very, very hard for them to build any sort of offense. So I'm curious to see if John Silva is going to capitalize on that, or if he's going to kind of just stick to his guns and, like I said, get into a gunfight with Diego Lopes and not really worry about capitalizing on the maybe weaker parts of Lopez's game.
I mean, it's a great point. Again, Volk kind of harped on it even after the fight, looking on his YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. His main point of emphasis was never going backwards in a straight line. The second you go laterally against Lopes, he kind of almost seems to get stuck.
Yeah.
You can see he wants to pull the trigger, but he's never quite there in range because, like you mentioned, he doesn't track guys very well. So for Silva, you'd imagine that that's something he's worked on tirelessly throughout this camp, and something they're going to really look to emphasize and capitalize on inside the cage.
Yeah. And I'm curious to see how much Diego chooses to try to grapple as well. I don't think he's going to be shooting open shots, but obviously we've seen his clinch game and, work from the double collar tie, whether that's to strike or to engage in a more grappling sense. But, I mean, look at the Sadiq Youssef fight, who is a similar size as John Silva, because Diego's going to look massive in this fight. I want to remind everybody he's going to have 4-inch height advantage, plus I'm not sure exactly the reach details, but he's going to be looking massive. And if he can slap those double collar ties on, throw those knees, throw those uppercuts, and make John Silva really uncomfortable when he's trying to get in Diego's face, I think that could, benefit him throughout the fight.
I think that's my main focus looking ahead to this fight, and my main differentiate between the two fighters. 4-inch height advantage. I think it's 3.5-inch reach advantage, something like that. I mean, Gene Silva is not used to fighting a man who is that much bigger than him. Of course, he's 5'7". He's not the biggest for the division, but a guy like Diego Lopes, his frame is just different to anyone else inside the featherweight division. I mean, how do you think Silva looks to combat that size and that length of Lopes?
I mean, I think the kicks. I think that's John Silva's probably one of his best tools. He doesn't obviously get a lot of finishes with his kicks, but the way he sets up his punches and keeps guys at bay, and especially, and I can speak on this from my last fight, actually. I unfortunately lost my last fight, but it's because my opponent was kicking my arms. I was trying to box and throw punches, and by the end of the second round, I didn't feel fatigued cardio-wise, but my arms felt so heavy because I was getting hit in my arms, and I felt like I couldn't build on my boxing. So, again, in a similar way, using kicks to keep guys who want to punch, keep their hands at home, for one, to have to block those kicks. And then second of all, fatiguing those arms and making sure that you can't actually, maintain that power and efficiency of the punching throughout. I think that's going to be a big key. And then also kicking the legs. I mean, Diego, he's going to be coming forward. He's going to be heavy on that lead leg. And John Silva being the shorter guy, I think that's going to be probably his better tools until he maybe breaks down some of that defensive Lopes and can start getting to work with the hands.
I mean, I love that point as well. Lopes is a guy that's been susceptible to those low kicks in the past as well. I mean, he's a crazy sort of fighter to look at because he's susceptible to a lot of things, but he just doesn't seem to be fazed by them. He almost reminds me of Max Holloway in the way that he'll get clipped to the legs, he'll get clipped to the body, he'll get clipped hard to the head. I mean, we saw Volk landed some of the cleanest shots he could have. But I mean, I don't know what it is with these Mexican-born fighters. They just are bred differently. You can't put these guys away. And I think that's the most interesting thing for me as well about this fight is Silva's just the most natural finisher almost in the UFC. He hunts the finish at all times. But with Diego Lopes, this is a different level of guy to try and put away to any he's faced in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the chin of Diego Lopes, I mean, he's eaten some of the biggest shots that you can eat from Volk, from, other fighters he's faced. And, can John Silva crack that chin? That's the real question. And, the last time we saw John Silva go to a decision was against Kevin Vallejos in the Contender Series, if I'm not mistaken, right? Which, again, Vallejos, different build, different style, but, again, that very boxing-heavy approach. And he gave John Silva a lot of issues, the volume and kind of forcing him onto the back foot. He would try to kick off the back foot, and then Vallejos would enter again with more combinations, working the body and things of that nature. So, again, this is a fight we could talk about for hours because, again, there's so many so many question marks that we can't quite answer right now until we see them actually face off in the cage. It's gonna be a banger, no doubt.
I mean, it's one of the most exciting fights of the year, and I've got to ask you as well for a prediction. It's so hard to do for this one, but which way are you leaning?
Oh man, I'm a little biased. Diego Lopes is one of my favorite fighters. Me and my girlfriend, we actually named our dog Diego. He's from Mexico, and he got brought to the U.S. and we adopted him. So again, I love the guy. This is one of, if not his toughest fight. Obviously, Volk is supremely skilled, but I just don't think he has that finishing ability at this point in his career that maybe John Silva does. So in terms of danger, this is definitely Diego Lopes's toughest opponent yet. But at the same time, as we mentioned, there are definitely pathways he can find to find success. And for John Silva, I mean, it's a matter of, again, how can he channel those emotions? Can he put Diego on the back foot, make him uncomfortable? So I'm going to go Diego Lopes round 4 KO. But that's like a 51-49. I mean, this is a very close fight. It's really, like you said, really, really tough to make a prediction. But how about you? How do you see this going?
I mean, I agree with you, and I think my biggest thing is just the level of competition. I mean, Jean Silva is incredible. Every fight he's looked better and better and better, but ultimately his biggest wins are Drew Dober, Charles Jourdain, and Bryce Mitchell. Yeah. I mean, when you compare those guys to a guy like Diego Lopes, this just is a different ballpark. It's a different realm that he's going into. And I think Lopes is maybe the more versatile fighter in this fight. I think he can mix it up. He can, like you said, use the clinch, force Silva back against the cage, maybe mix in the odd takedown, the odd trip, the odd sweep in there as well, submission attempts. And of course, I think the cardio, after watching him against Volk for 5 rounds, just keep an insane pace. Yeah. I think that cardio could really come into play, especially with how bad Silva's weight cuts are. We know to 145, it's brutal for him, man.
Yeah. And on that point too, I mean, Diego Lopes, I think prior to that Volk fight, he started training heavily with the Oklahoma State wrestling team, which, for those who may not be familiar on the nationwide state, Oklahoma State is one of the top universities in terms of wrestling in the country. I mean, we've had so many legends come out of there. And Jacoby Smith, who's in the UFC, I believe he wrestled at Oklahoma State. So, you know, we have a lot of really good fighters there. So the fact Diego Lopes has taken that angle for his camp, he obviously trains in Vegas, but he'll fly to Oklahoma Cup for a week or two, you know, and get that hard wrestling and that traditional in the room, just grinding. So, I mean, if his cardio wasn't good before, getting those training sessions in will pump that up to another level without a doubt. So,
I mean, I'm right on board. I think I don't want to steal your prediction, but I think Diego Lopes round 4 KOs, round 4 or round 5. I think that's the area where I look for him to break this one down. And of course, I mean, we mentioned in this card, you know, we had Paris last week, which kind of felt like Christmas came early in a way.
My goodness.
It's just insane. We've got the incredible pay-per-views in October. Looking below this main event, this card maybe isn't the best. Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, next week too with Perth, I mean, it's loaded with fights, but how many of those fights carry relevance? I mean, I'm not too excited for a Justin Taffa, Ivo Aslan co-main event or whatever the hell that's going to be. So, but anyways, back to this card. Co-main, I believe it was scheduled to be Raul Rosas versus Rob Font, but Raul Rosas pulled out with an injury recently, which is very fascinating because I saw him getting boxing sparring in with Emiliano. I'm spacing his name right now, but just last week he was doing hard rounds, and I'm like, it's interesting to pull out of a fight and then post that right 2 weeks before the actual fight would occur. But regardless, David Black Spartan Martinez stepping in, obviously had a fantastic win in the Contender Series, and then got his first knockout win earlier this year in the UFC as well. The younger brother of Melissa Martinez, who is also a very skilled UFC fighter. Obviously, she took a loss to Fatima Klein in her last one, but we all know Fatima Klein is about as good as they get in terms of prospects, so not really too much of a notch in her overall career. But yeah, David Martinez, this feels very similar to the John Matsumoto fight. Obviously, Rob Font, seasoned veteran, almost, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but a gatekeeper of the bantamweight division. I mean, he's been around in that kind of top 8 to top 12 range for so long, and really just kind of been the litmus test of like, can you advance within this division, or are you going to kind of run up against a wall? And obviously John Matsumoto stepped in very late notice, had a fantastic fight, lost a split decision to Rob, and now again, young prospect, 12-1, 1-0 in the UFC, stepping up on short notice to face Rob. How do you see this fight kind of playing out?
I love this fight. You mentioned there the prospects. His last 3 wins inside the UFC, Rob Font, are Adrian Yanez, Kyler Phillips, and John Matsumoto. I mean, this guy is, if you're a prospect and you want to be someone, like you say, you beat Rob Font. And to me, looking at this fight, I think it's just that wiliness, that experience, and ultimately those hands of Rob Font. I love the way that Rob Font goes about his business against these guys. He always has a different game plan. And it seems to be the pressure a lot of the time of Rob Font. I think he's going to put a pace on Martinez. Of course, short notice is always difficult. And I think the pace and the pressure of Rob Font will ultimately take over. And I think he finishes this fight late. I will say, though, I'm a lot more excited for this matchup than I was for Rosas, because I felt that was a little bit early. Yeah. Maybe a couple of years early.
Not just a little bit early, but just the stylistic matchup. I mean, it almost feels like they're trying to force Rosas to improve his striking by booking him against strikers at this point, because he has not shown that development in his game. Yet we see these videos come out of, like I mentioned, him sparring with boxers and having crazy stand-up rounds at Extreme Couture and other gyms. So, again, obviously he pulled out, so it's not really about him. But Raul Rosas, that was definitely a question mark in terms of the matchmaking for me. But David Martinez, I mean, he's a really interesting story. If I'm not mistaken, he's a doctor. He works full-time as a doctor in Mexico City. And then he also, obviously, has trained and fought. He comes from a karate background, similar to his sister, Melissa. And he is extremely good with the kicks. I mean, if you look, he's the type of guy who will throw 3-4 kicks in a row in a matter of 2 seconds, and you won't know it hit you, but you know something hit you. And again, like you said, it's versus the boxing of Rob Font. It's almost similar to how we were breaking down the last fight with, if Jean Silva can establish his kicks, he can kind of reduce the effectiveness of Diego Lopes. And I think for David Martinez, that's the same thing here. I mean, he's shown good power with his hands and good long punches, but again, that distance management and that length and range, I think, is going to be the major key for him in having any sort of success in this fight.
I think it's one of those things as well where on short notice, with a heavy kicking style, can you keep that up for those 3 rounds? Because like you say, if he can, man, this guy can do damage inside the cage. But if he can't, Rob Font is a guy who just, if there's blood in the water, he goes straight in and he goes for the kill. And that is how I see this one playing out. But it's an incredible matchup and a really strong co-main, to be fair to the card as well.
Yeah. And again, too, you got to, like you said, the pressure of Rob Font, but not only the pressure of co-main eventing in your second UFC fight on a card dedicated to Mexican heritage, regardless of the fact if it's in Texas or actually Mexico. But still, that's a huge step up against a big name. So you got to just think, how is David mentally going to handle this? And, obviously there's a lot of that kind of like putting your nation on your back in that way, especially in big moments like this. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can kind of shoulder that load and execute, or if maybe it's just a little bit too soon to kind of carry that level of pressure into a fight.
Absolutely. It's very intriguing. And I believe the next matchup we're looking at is Rafa Garcia, Jared Gordon, the next one on this card.
Yeah, which, I mean, hey, 2 wily vets. I mean, those guys are as tough as they come. They're going to box it out. They might wrestle a little bit. It's going to be a fun scrap. But again, I think my biggest issue with not just these cards coming up, this one and the next one, but just with a lot of UFC matchmaking is there's not a lot of relevance in the matchmaking. It's like, what are we doing to either advance these guys' careers, create some sort of ranking opportunity later on, or just create fun stylistic matchups? And while I think that definitely checks the box of fun stylistic matchups, I mean, these are 2 guys later in their careers who may or may not, which again, on that same note, I do prefer this than just feeding them to young prospects, who are on the come up. But again, we'll talk about this more with other matchups. There's a lot of just almost spinning wheels matchups on here that's like, what are we doing for the promotion versus are we just booking fights to book fights? That's kind of my perception.
I mean, I think this fight is as booking a fight, just the book a fight, as you can get. Like you say, it's a fun matchup. It feels like one of those that maybe you'd open a main card with, give the fans get them out their seats, get a war inside the cage, and then we kind of move on. But for the third, I mean, the featured main card spot, it's kind of a little bit like well, we know what these guys are. We know where
Yeah.
maybe they're limited to go inside the sport. So it does feel a little bit weak maybe for this
Yeah.
to be the third fight of the main card.
Yeah, I agree. And then, I mean, right down, we got two guys on pretty rough. Well, Dustin Stoltzfus has had mixed success recently, but two guys on very up and down career trajectories with Kelvin Gastelum and Dustin Stoltzfus. You know, I commend Dustin Stoltzfus for the resilience he's shown in his career. Obviously, he's had some tough finishes, he's had some tough runs, but he's managed to bounce back and pull off some pretty incredible victories. But I mean, again, we're talking about known commodities. Kelvin Gastelum is about as known as they get at this point. You know, the fight with Joe Pyfer was just really uninspiring. It just really looked like two one-note fighters not really having many other options when it comes to, you know, strategy or technical ability. And again, I never root for a fighter's success, but what does Kelvin Gastelum offer to the middleweight division at this point on the UFC roster? That's kind of my 2 cents.
I mean, I think it's very interesting at the moment with the UFC where you'll get, it's kind of a conundrum that they have, or a paradox maybe inside the UFC, where they get these young, hungry, up and coming guys like a Brian Battle. He misses weight twice and he's gone. There's no remorse. Yeah. He's just gone. And we saw it. We know Brian Battle is great on the mic. He's great inside the cage, and they just cut him without remorse. But guys like Stoltzfus, like Gastelum, kind of feels like they're sort of just hanging around in case the UFC needs a couple guys, maybe on a pay-per-view prelim, maybe on a fight night main card like this. And it is interesting to see the differing opinions or different ways they have to go about keeping a guy or cutting a guy.
Yeah, and on that note, I think we got two different kind of situations. I think Stoltzfus is, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but he's very happy to be there. He's probably not going to make anywhere close to what he's making in the UFC in any other organization, and he will accept the fights that he needs to maintain that opportunity, which, full respect to him, because a man's got to make his money, and when you have that earning potential, make the most of it. But on the flip side, Kelvin Gastelum, who's probably over the hill in his career, is probably making so much from his former championship fights and the kind of contracts he's gotten that he can't leave that money on the table. And even if he's maybe done with fighting mentally or physically, it's like, again, the earning potential is only so limited in this sport that you have to, you know, take advantage of that. And then, again, it's such a shame when the UFC takes that potential away from guys like Martin Buday or Brian Battle, or these fighters who win their fights and should be advancing up the rankings on a merit-based system, but instead take that earning potential away and that name value potential away because the UFC simply doesn't like the way they operate. And again, make your weight, no excuse. But at the same time, 7-2, whatever he is in the UFC, it's like, what are we doing here? That's my 2 cents.
I mean, I agree completely, and credit to those guys for going away to places like the PFL and Octagon, where they go from being just another guy to the guy inside those promotions. So that's great to see. And I mean, looking further down this card, I know there's a couple prospects in particular that we're quite excited about. Yes. I want to let you take the lead on this because I know there's two in particular.
Yeah.
Take the floor, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So it looks like this card is listed on the main card on Tapology, but we got Santiago Luna stepping in on 10, 12 days notice to face Kwang Lee, who is LFA veteran, obviously coming off a really, really good knockout in his last fight. But Santiago Border Boy Luna, this guy is somebody I'm very, very excited about. He's coming in 6-0. A lot of his fights have come for Ultimate Warrior Challenge, which is a promotion down in Baja California, Mexico. And then also recently fought for Tough Enough, which is a regional promotion based out of Las Vegas. They travel around, though, to Southern California and other regions as well. But Santiago Luna, this is a guy who's been after it his entire life. I mean, he's been wrestling, he's been training since he's a young kid. One of my good friends was actually one of his mentors in high school. When an upperclassman kind of takes a lowerclassman and helps him through and stuff. So super cool opportunities there. And he's gotten praise from guys like Daniel Cormier, Chael Sonnen, like a lot of people in the wrestling community, particularly in California and the West Coast. I mean, this guy's a known commodity among the people that matter. So, obviously it's a very tough ask to step in on 10 days notice. He's fighting a guy who's got a little bit of experience in the UFC, but at the same time, he is truly one of those explosive talents. And I don't know if you remember last year's Noche card, and obviously there's not nearly as much publicity on this one, but Ronaldo Rodriguez really stole the spotlight. Made his name known. Really, kind of was like, that's the story of Noche right there. And I feel like Santiago Luna has that opportunity in this card to kind of be that unexpected, star kind of rising up, that new Mexican name who is a known finisher. I mean, he's got 4 submissions, 2 knockouts, and the beautiful thing about that is he was submitting guys, and now he's putting away guys with his hands. So this is a known development. He's really worked on his striking to the point where he's found that power, and now it's all coming together for him at the right time. Obviously 6-0, very young in his pro career, so there's going to be some question marks there, just experience-wise, but yeah, man, I'm really, really excited for Santiago Luna to make his debut.
I think he's absolutely going to be one of these guys. I mean, 21 years old is insane to think he's already made it to the UFC, but he's just a crowd favorite. The way this guy fights, the way he attacks opponents, the variation in his striking, like you mentioned, the growth. And then when it hits the ground, I mean, not just the way when it hits the ground, the way this guy gets people down, he didn't just take them down, he slams them down. Yeah. The amount of takedowns I've seen him land where he is just killing guys, dropping them hard. And we saw one of his recent knockouts, he completely left the guy stone cold, one shot, unconscious. I mean, this guy is pure power, pure excitement, and pure action. I can't wait for him to make his debut. Yeah, and at 5'9", at 145, I mean, he's definitely not undersized as well. We were talking about the size differentiation in the main event, and he's kind of right in between there, 5'7", 5'11", with Diego Lopes and John Silva. So, like, as well, hopefully he can make 145. Again, short notice, there's always that question mark of, like, what was he walking around at? What's his training been like? But, I mean, obviously he's had no problem making 145 throughout his career thus far. So, again, just another top prospect added to this stacked featherweight division. I mean, it just gets better, so. It's crazy, isn't it? The way that divisions just seem to take on a life of their own. They'll have a couple I mean, we see it right now, welterweight, flyweight, featherweight. They are just unbelievably stacked. I can't wait. And I know the other prospect that you're excited to talk about is Alice Pereira, who is, get out there right now, not the sister of Alex Pereira. No. I don't know where that came from.
Well, it's because Alex Pereira's sister's name is Eileen Pereira. So you changed out the one letter, or Eileen, I think is pronounced. But again, you see a striker, you see a kickboxer, you see a girl who's got a lot of knockout power with the last name Pereira, and all of a sudden people are like, oh, Alex is... And I think people have heard Alex has a sister without actually knowing much about her career. So I think it kind of creates that misconception. But yes, that's a good shout. Not related to Alex Pereira, but crazy power, great kickboxer nonetheless.
She is. I mean, it feels to me like going into this one, she's 19 years old. I believe she's one of, if not the youngest female fighters on the roster. And already there's billboards, there's posters up in Brazil. The UFC, without really much major regional experiences, put her in this spot, signed her to the promotion straight up. It feels like they see a superstar in Pereira here, and they really want to push her. I mean, how do you view this matchup? Because it's not the layup that maybe you'd expect. Montserrat Rendon is a very, very tough customer inside the cage.
Absolutely. I mean, we talk about that Mexican chin and that Mexican just willingness to move forward, and Montserrat is definitely fits that bill. I mean, the thing that jumps off the page to me is the size of Alice Pereira. I mean, she is 5'10" with a 71-inch reach, which is borderline unheard of in the women's divisions. That's massive. And, she's a known finisher. She's got, 5 finishes in her career. The only issue is, again, I haven't watched much tape on these fights. Some of them are hard to find. But she does have a couple fights flagged for legitimacy on Tapology, meaning she was either a severe mismatch, they got some cab driver to come fight her, or maybe the promotion was a little bit sketchy. So obviously anytime I see that, you're always like, okay, let's take a step back. Hopefully this is not kind of a smoke and mirrors type thing. But in her last fight, she beat Samara Santos, who's a 12-8-1 veteran. She beat her over 4 rounds. A lot of regional promotions don't do the 5th round if it's been a dominant performance throughout 4. They'll kind of do the 5th as a tiebreaker round. So hence the 4 rounds on that one. But yeah, I mean, this girl's got great kicks. She's got great power, great size, and for Rendon, I mean, you got to think she's going to want to mix it up. She did a little bit of wrestling in her last fight, if I'm not mistaken, against Daria. She mixed it up, but again, I think she was just outsized in that fight. and that's probably something similar she's going to face in this matchup.
I agree completely. I mean, 6-1 in her career. I believe all 7 fights have gone to decisions. That proves, like you said, that Mexican chin again and that heart that she has. But ultimately, Pereira, it feels like there's a superstar in the making here.
Yeah.
And although it's not a layup per se, I still see her producing something special and producing a heck of a highlight here.
I will say, while we don't give a lot of credit to the UFC matchmaking, they certainly know how to get highlight finishes from their prospects they want to. You know, like even guys like Islam Dulatov or, Joe Pyfer earlier in his career, you know, they, even if on paper the matchup's like, this might, there's got to be some things they know or see and capitalize on, because it's when they really push somebody like that, it's rare that they lose in their first fight. Maybe 3-4 fights down the road, like a la Peyton Talbot, you know, once they really step up. But those first 2 or 3 fights for a prospect they want are going to be very, very favorable matchups, and I think that's probably what we're seeing here.
I agree. And I mean, you made a great point there. Like Peyton Talbot, on paper, when he fought Cameron Simon, everyone was like, oh, this is a tough test, and he smoked him.
It wasn't even close.
So they definitely, I mean, it was as dominant as it comes. So that's a great point. And Pereira by vicious KOs is what I'm feeling here.
Yeah. And then, you know, elsewhere on the card, I got to say, Jose Medina versus Dusko Todorovic is probably the worst fight they've booked this year. I mean, no disrespect to either gentleman, but I mean, what are we doing here, man? This is just like, I think if you look on the Tapology UFC rankings, these are the bottom 2 ranked fighters in the middleweight division, and it really makes you wonder.
It's so wild.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm not mistaken, we've got that. Is it followed by Zachary Reese against Cedric Dumas, or is it?
That's actually a few fights before. That's one of our early prelims. But again, I mean, Zach Reese, he's fine. He's going to be one of those guys who's probably going to have a long, if not very notable UFC career. But Cedric Dumas, I mean, for fuck's sake, excuse my language, but this guy is not a good fighter. He's not exciting. He's not good on the mic. He has more legal issues than you can even count. How has he stayed around as long as he has? It doesn't make sense to me.
His last performance, his last performance has to be highlighted. If people haven't seen his last fight, I implore you to go and watch it, because it was, for all the stuff coming in about him, all the negative stuff that was coming in about him, he somehow outdid all of that inside the cage. He kind of went in there and just kind of quit the second the bell rang.
Yeah.
And just went backwards and eventually crippled over to the floor. I don't get, we mentioned it before, why is this guy inside the UFC? No disrespect, but maybe some disrespect, because he's not a great guy.
To him, disrespect. There's a lot of guys where I will, they're fighters, but when you're a known piece of shit who is, domestic violence charges and robbery and all that stuff, the respect has gone out the door, my man. Like, please.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, anyways. But I was going to say, the fact that he beat Matej Panaz on the Contender Series. I was talking to some of my Octagon friends the other day about this, and obviously Matej has his own issues, but if you look at his run outside the UFC, man, that guy's a freaking killer. And Dumas somehow choked him out in like 2 minutes, and that's one of the weirdest Contender Series performances of all time to me, because that is like such a mismatch, and then it went the complete other direction, and I'm like, man, yeah. But anyways, enough talking about Cedric Dumas.
I do wish we could change the outcome of that one, though, because I love Peñas too. He would have been cool inside the UFC, but what can you do?
Yeah, so, before we head out of here, just a couple other fighters I want to mention. Alden Correa, he's coming off Fury FC to fight Alessandro Costa. Again, really, really good prospect, great power at 125. He's got some really good wins in Fury. Obviously, if anybody's interested, a lot of his fights are on Fight Pass, because he fought for that promotion as well. And then a fight that's kind of flying under the radar, which, obviously I think it's because of her last performances. We do have Tatiana Suarez versus Amanda Lemos on this card, which in terms of divisional relevance, we were complaining about other fights. This fight actually does carry some level of top 10 ranking and what's next for a fighter coming off a title loss, so this fight could be better than I think a lot of people are expecting.
I love the fact, I mean, to be honest, I completely forgot that one's on here too.
Yeah,
and I was looking at the card. it's kind of wild to think that her last fight was fighting for a belt. You
Yeah.
don't see many people go from fighting from a belt to just kind of just thrown in a card, not really promoted, not really highlighted at all. But, you know, there we go. But
Yeah.
that is arguably the second biggest fight on this card, and probably the second most entertaining one to look forward to.
And for as much as Tatiana Suarez struggled, I mean, let's be real, it was against, in my opinion, the women's GOAT, Zhang Weili. So she's made how many fighters look horrible? And another example is, look at Yan Xiaonan. She had, I mean, she got her ass whooped during that fight. And she's come back and had multiple fantastic performances since then, including picking up finishes and, you know, borderline fight of the night performances. So I think the litmus test of how did you do against Zhang Weili is not the best way to judge the vast majority of the division. You know, it's almost like how Volk was during his run. It's like he's so much better than anybody else that can even come close to this. They almost have to fight in their own division, and he's just kind of up there at the top, beating whoever wants to take a shot at him. And I feel like that's the reason we're seeing Zhang Weili move up in weight to fight Shevchenko, is just because, frankly, there's nobody that can touch her at that weight class.
100%. I mean, what she did to Zhao Nan, knocking her out, submitting her, and beating her by decision, basically all in one fight. I mean, she is something else. She's completely special. And I mean, you're exactly right. Tatiana Suarez is a legit, very good fighter.
Yeah.
She just came up against someone who is something else, a different planet fighter.
Yeah, 100%. So that fight's great. And then I believe there's one more on here. Oh, yeah, the opening prelim. This is the delayed finals to the Ultimate Fighter. Because unfortunately, Danil Donchenko, former Niza FC champ, Ukrainian and Kazakh fighter, he had to pull out due to injury, but he's taken on Rodrigo Senzinato, who's a Brazilian-Canadian fighter. I'm looking forward to this fight because Donchenko is violent and very, very skilled. Senzinato had a bit of a boring run on the Contender Series, or not Contender Series, excuse me, Ultimate Fighter. A lot of wrestling. He almost lost a couple of those fights, but obviously very physically strong, very good grappler. But I think Donchenko has the physicality and the knockout ability to get Senzinato out of here. What are your takes on this fight?
I mean, I'm right there with you, man. Donchenko is one of those guys, again, where when they step inside the cage, you just expect violence. You expect something. And I think it's the aggressiveness. Again, when you get a guy who kind of looks, I don't want to say stalling during a fight, but kind of just let's win in as safe of a way as humanly possible here. Mm-hmm. When they face a guy who is all out guns blazing, it's kind of like their kryptonite. They don't really know, you know, they're used to a guy just getting on bottom and I can just keep him there. Yeah. With this, there's no way that's going to happen, I don't think.
No, and we saw it with the Jeff Creighton fight on the Ultimate Fighter with Senzinato. Jeff Creighton had moments, he really did, where he would push forward. He'd have a good 2-minute burst where he'd start putting the pressure on. He'd hurt Senzinato, but then he would just back up to the cage again, and then Senzinato would take him down, and then you'd result in these kind of stalemates like you were talking about. So, again, there's been the path to victory versus Senzinato has been shown. It's just a matter of now exploiting that and making it a success, you know. So, like you mentioned, Donchenko has the aggression and violence to make that happen.
I can't wait. It's a great opener, and hopefully we're in for another great night of fights. It's one of them where sometimes you look at the card and it doesn't jump off the page to you, and then all of a sudden you're treated to 10 finishes. Yeah. So hopefully we get another situation like that, man.
Yep, absolutely. Well, it's been great chatting the fights with you today, Kian. It's awesome. We'll have to do this again soon. But yeah, looking forward to the fights this weekend. And also, on a non-UFC note, everybody tune into Octagon 75 this weekend. It's going to be a fantastic event. A lot of big fights on there. Great stadium over in Germany. So, you know, we're going to be treated to some very good combat sports this weekend overall.
Absolutely. Octagon 75 this weekend, and then Octagon 76 next week, which we may have to get back on and chat about because that card is
100%
insane, man.
Stacked.
So if people want to kick off their nights with the right way of doing it, Octagon is your warm-up, and then you get into the UFC.
100%. All right, Kian.
Thank you very much for your time today, brother, and have a great rest of your day, and look forward to doing this again soon.
Yes, sir. You as well. It's been fun, man.